Hey, my name is Rap for no reason, and welcome to the first episode of the Weekly Waffle, where I just waffle about anything for up to an hour. Now, most of our discussions will be about Runescape, as it's the main focus of my channel, but I'll talk about plenty of other topics like my life, content creation, other video games, animes, other content creators, etc. It's similar to a podcast, but it's a YouTube series. Now, the first few episodes will be scripted, but I'm going to try and move towards these videos becoming unscripted, with bullets and points on the side as I become a better speaker and communicator. I just want to stay as authentic to you guys as I can, and I'm not the best communicator right now, so I'm using a script. With that being said, since I am using a script, there might be times where I'll sound monotone, and I apologize if that is the case. That's not my intention, obviously, but it might happen regardless. Now, since this is my first episode, this is essentially a pilot. I'll continue making these videos for a while, but if I'm not happy with the performance of this series, I'll drop it and I'll focus on other projects. Now, if you guys want to support me and the content I'm producing, the easiest way to do it is to drop a sub, because it's free and more numbers equal more better. Also, 97% of my viewers are not subscribed to me, so help your boy out and subscribe, please. I'm still on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so your support would mean the world to me. Now, if you guys want to go above and beyond with your support, I'm currently working on memberships right now, but there will be two tiers. Supporter for $4.99, which is the same price as a sub on Twitch, or sponsor for $9.99. You can join today, but I'm still ironing out the kinks of that, so expect a video once everything is set in stone, explaining what you get by becoming a member and the differences between a supporter and a sponsor. Alright, that's enough of that. Move me over to your second monitor, take a drink of coffee, and listen as we delve into today's controversial topic: bots will kill RuneScape. Now, this is a doomer take, but just hear me out. So, before we get into the current state of bots, let me give you a very brief history of them. And odds are, if you're watching this video, you already know about bots. RuneScape has always had bots. Since I started playing in 2007, nearly 2 decades ago, there's been bots. But most of these bots, they'd be found in areas where you'd either train your account, normally with a small amount of monetary benefit, or where you'd make a decent amount of GP as a mid-level, since it's easy to get to that point in the game. They can easily create accounts if they get banned. You know, these were areas like rock crabs and relica, sand crabs, green dragons, blue dragons, gargoyles, and many, many more. Many, many more. So it's no secret that bots, they've always been an issue, especially to mid-game players, which they're the vast majority of players, because their experience is directly being hindered by actively competing with the bots. But, and I never thought I'd have to say this, it's becoming more problematic nowadays than just mid-level players being, their experience being hindered. So, we kind of went over the history of it, and it's important that we went over the history of it because the people who are making the scripts, they aren't dumb. They do this for a living or as a side hustle for passive income, and they learn from others and from their own mistakes, and their skills only improve over the time. To some of them, it's almost like an art, and to customers, it's either a way of monetizing RuneScape by creating bot farms, or cheating to sort of create a shortcut towards progressing your account faster. This is causing the entire concept of bots to change from being programmed to doing a specific activity in a specific way to being programmed to essentially be perfect at any activity. The best example of this is Sir Pugger's recent video where he interviewed the man who created a bot that has already completed the Coliseum only days after its release. Now, that is insane. It's absolutely insane. I'm not a programmer. I don't understand code very well or even the inner mechanisms of the game, so I'd really urge you guys to watch that video because it's truly terrifying and it's a telling sign of things to come if bots aren't properly dealt with. But to kind of summarize it, the bot, it recognizes what combat style is being used against it, and it kind of recognizes the tiles, and based on where the enemy's standing, their attack types, etc., it kind of understands what tiles would be the safest to go to. It's insane. But okay, We're going to return talking about the Coliseum bot soon. I wanted to talk about some other problematic bots before I get back to talking about the sophisticated scripts like the Coliseum bot. But okay, another bot that's been super prevalent and has received a fair amount of attention are rev bots. I mean, if you were to go Google Revenants, you would find, so many videos of people PKing revs. Rev bots, they're insane. And they might not be telling you this in those videos, but they're becoming nearly impossible to kill, without using very expensive gear. I mean, some bots, they're entangling you, walking underneath you, and logging. Some bot farms, they have name recognition where they'll start running, logging, or teleporting when you're within a certain range of them. And what I mean by name recognition is if you killed like 1 or 2 bots in a specific farm, that farm is gonna kind of like put your name in its registry, and whenever you're within a certain amount of tiles away from them, whether you're skulled or not, they're just gonna run away. And that's annoying in its own right. Basically these bots are getting defensive mechanisms to avoid being in combat and to escape combat, but they're even going a step further in that they're capable of fighting back now to a certain degree. I think that it'll get a lot worse in the future, but I'm not going to put on the tinfoil hat yet. We're just going to talk about what's currently happening. So the bots, they are currently fighting back. They can recognize whatever combat style you're using, and they switch their prayers very fast. You have a very short window to hit them before they just automatically switch prayers. Now, they're autoing you at the same time. They're even using their special attack. Because they basically only train range, they do decent DPS too, and they'll out DPS you in some cases. Like if you're pure and you're trying to kill them, they will out DPS you in some cases. It's kind of depressing. I mean, I went on my Zerker with only range and mage with a dragon crossbow and claws of Gothics, and I literally could not kill most of the bots. I mean, I didn't die at all, but the possibility of dying to these bots was very real. I mean, there were times where I was trying to kill one, and I literally ran out of food before they did. It's super depressing. And my Zerker isn't like a shitter. I was in Void with 94 range and 94 magic, and I couldn't kill it. And again, I mentioned the possibility of the bots even killing you. Apparently, they do pick up your loot if you die. So that's something. That's almost funny in a way. But yeah, they're fighting back, and they're even looting if they kill somebody. It's kind of nuts. But some advice to people who do want to kill them: apparently staff bashing helps a lot because it's hard to kill them. It's harder for them to detect whether or not you're using melee or magic. So that could be a way to help kill them. But the whole point of what I'm talking about is it's becoming so alarmingly difficult to kill them now that it's insane. At one point, killing bots in the wilderness, it was a decent moneymaker, and it was even great practice to learn how to PvP. In a way, it was like an entry to PvP. And now, I wouldn't advise players to do it unless they have a max pure and are willing to risk millions of GP. But that's not the only alarming groups of bots though. There's another type of bot that I'm going to summarize with the name boss bots that devalue the rewards from bossing as a whole. Now, Zor bots, Next bots, TOB bots, these are the big 3. I probably am missing a lot more, but these are the big 3 that everyone pretty much knows about. These bots, they kill these bosses that most players struggle with ease. That alone is problematic, that like endgame content is being botted. That is problematic, but it's also problematic that some of the best items in the game are being botted. I'm talking about Torva, the Blowpipe, Serpentine Helm, Sanguisti Staff, Stife. Like, it's insane. It's insane. Some of the best PVM content, some of the most high effort PVM content in the game is being content. The days of true mid-level content being farmed for GP simply because the accounts are easy to make is quickly eroding, because why would you make 1,000 accounts that could farm 500,000 GP an hour when you can make 250 accounts that could farm millions more GP an hour? It just makes sense for them from a monetization standpoint. And I'd even argue that it's not even hard to make these accounts. Like Zoro bots, they really only need 75 magic range and defense to make at least 1 million GP an hour. And a lot of these accounts, I won't say most, but a lot of these accounts, they're not even being created. A lot of bots, they're also just hacked accounts. You know, for instance, one of my friends that I haven't talked to in a long time, his name is Bermuda. He has a YouTube channel, but he posted a YouTube video not too long ago showing his recovered account with 14,000 Zora KC. Now, he didn't get anything out of it. There's no GP on it, but other than his account, you know, other than him getting his account back, the pet and 14,000 Zora KC, you know, this happening, like accounts being hacked and then being used as a bot, I think it makes it harder to detect these bots, and it requires a lot more investigating. I mean, a max main bot in TOB, Ethereal Blood, surely requires some investigation before you banned it, right? And this kind of brings us to our next subtopic about botting. The Coliseum bot that beat the new hardest content in the game in only a couple days. This new bot script, along with the other past scripts, is going to make every piece of content capable of being botted. I mean, technically it already is, but I'm saying to an absurd degree. Pretty soon you might see God Wars bots that never leave the room because they're perfect. They'll just mitigate as much damage as possible by one tick prayer flicking and healing back all the damage they do take with Blood Barrage at the end of it. You know, eventually CGs will be botted and everyone's favorite item, the Bofa, will eventually drop in place, which it's going to devalue one of the best endgame items. It's not because players are actively farming it, it's because bots are. It's frustrating. It's frustrating, but that's kind of like the point we're going to be getting to the game very soon. But here's the other thing though. I've mostly talked about people doing this for financial gain, as in monetizing their accounts. But there's another type of customer that's purchasing these sophisticated scripts that we briefly mentioned before. You know, the people who want to cheat to progress their account faster, or for some sort of fake internet clout. Like, look at me guys, I have the Infernal Cape and Quiver, I'm good at Runescape. It's pathetic. But there is a large number of people who are buying Quivers and Infernal Capes. And the people who are offering these services, at least a fair portion of them, they're using scripts or bots to complete them, which as a seller, it makes sense to do. I mean, if you're a seller and you fail someone's run, you're effectively cutting your own profit margins. Using a bot also means you can do multiple capes at once. It just makes sense for these people to do it, and I don't fault them. I mean, I do. But I think the bigger problem is the players who are buying the capes and quivers that are allowing the marketplace to exist. That's what the real problem is. But, you know, if we really dive into that conversation, it's more of like, you know, a similar conversation would be like, who's really at fault, the drug dealer or the addict? I think that we can all just agree that bad is bad either way, and say that like one group of players isn't as more evil than the other. They're both just evil, or bad, I guess in this case. They're not evil if they want to buy something on a video game, but it does hurt the integrity of the video game. Sorry, I'm starting to go off on a tangent. Let me just head back to my scripts. Alright, so referencing Sir Pugger's video again, the script that the guy used to beat the Infernal, that was very similar. It's very similar to the script made to beat the Coliseum. That script made him about $50,000 USD in a year. In 1 year. To put that into perspective, to make $50,000 a year before taxes, you need to make $24 an hour working 40 hours a week. This is more than minimum wage in any state, and triple it in a lot of states in the United States. This is just the person selling the script, by the way. We're not even talking about the people who are selling the capes that are using the scripts. Those guys are probably making a similar amount, and maybe even more depending on the volume. It's disgusting, and we're at a point where we can't really trust people who have capes or quivers as legitimate players who got them with their own skill, because it's becoming more and more common for players to swipe their credit card to get it. It's absurd. And the scariest part to me is that the OSRS team, they're working pretty hard to deal with these bots by working with AI, and I love the idea of that. AI is going to be the future of bot busting. I mean, AI is actually going to be the future of everything. But will the integrity of the game hold up until AI gets to that point? And the scary part of it, to me, is, what's going to happen when AI is used to create script instead of the coders using it themselves? I'm sure this has already happened to some degree, but AI learns from its own mistakes, and it uses all of its experiences as building blocks to grow. Similar to people, but it's a robot, so it's better at it than we are. So the way I see it, in OSRS, AI it's going to be a rat race that either makes or breaks the future of OSRS if we don't start taking more measures to prevent botting. It's actually scary. We might see bots rapidly progress to the point where there might be a PK in bots that literally PK players in the wilderness. It's a possibility. And we're going to put on our tinfoil hat and talk, take this a step further. This brings us to a whole other question of what's going to happen if artificial intelligence starts to play the game. Artificial intelligence, it's basically a human. They would play the game exactly how we do, mirroring us to the point of it being impossible to tell based on clicks, movement, judgment, irrational responses that aren't preset, real genuine conversation. To really explain this to you guys, you'd have to look at the AI VTuber Neurosama as an example. This is a genuine case of AI playing video games, interacting with chat and more. It's crazy. And before Neurosama became incredibly popular, she was an AI that played Osu, a skill-based rhythm game. She became so good over time that she became the best player in the world by far. And of course, she no longer plays any sort of skill-based games, and instead is more of an entertainer, which is a great thing. I'm glad that Vital did that. Vital's a guy who created that script and works on her codes, even on stream. But still, the point that I'm getting here is that this is something that we could see in the near future of RuneScape. 10 years ago, the very thought that artificial intelligence would be used for entertainment is something literally out of a sci-fi movie. And it's reality today. In 10 years, it's possible that the entire concept of bots will essentially be AI masquerading as real players. And how is any system supposed to catch this without incredibly invasive permissions? I just don't know. Technology, it's moving in a direction that leaves MMOs like RuneScape, World of Warcraft, and similar titles in a very vulnerable state of having basically no game integrity. But alright, moving back to the present and our current reality, we're putting away our tinfoil hats. Even if it's approaching somewhat fast, it's unpredictable, we don't know when all this stuff is going to happen. We are in the day and age of AI completely taking over botting or anti-botting measures. And as much as we like to clown on them, Jagex is still a big multi-million-dollar company. They aren't a small indie company. They can afford to invest resources and create an active bot busting team that actively looks for bots, even if it's a team of 10 people just hopping through worlds as a part-time job, catching blatant bots. It'd help improve a lot of things right now. I mean, free-to-play is rancid. It's completely overran with bots, and that's not good for the growth of the game. You have to understand that there's a completely separate audience of people who don't watch YouTube content, Twitch content, etc. They go in and they think that that's what the game is. Bots. There are casual players that just log on and just do their own thing because they think it's fun. There's also a similar but slightly different audience that logs on to RuneScape from their mobile device because, don't forget, RuneScape is a mobile game and a lot of them are new players. Reddit, Twitter, people on YouTube, commenters on YouTube, people that watch Twitch, this isn't the majority of the player base. And I know that's crazy to hear, but it's the truth. It's not the majority of the player base. There are players that just want to start playing again after 14 years that don't use any of that. There are players who log on to RuneScape just to have fun, and their experience is so severely hindered by bots that's just not okay. The overall goal of shutting down bot farms by detecting their scripts is great, and it should be active, and it makes it so that, these bots are inevitably banned, but there has to be more done for the betterment of the game. And I know there are issues that can arise with active measures like this. Like, and by what I mean by active measures is like having an active bot busting team, like false bans or even malicious intent. But at some point, we need to consider what'd be healthier for the game. A few false bans or blatant bots running the game into the ground. And let's not pretend that false bans aren't already happening. We like to say that it's like so few and far between, but the new AI anti-bot busting mechanism, like system that they have in place, it is doing some false bans every now and then, and it's a little more common than we like to admit. So, you know, putting aside from, you know, the new players, but there's also like an audience of existing players or players that haven't really progressed their account very much. Well, those players are essentially being shot down too, because bots, they take over moneymakers that these accounts should be doing. Like, when's the last time you've seen players genuinely killing dragons for money? It's few and far between. Like, everyone is crowding the most common money-making methods that aren't completely destroyed, because why waste your time doing some niche activity that's been devalued by botting when you could just do something else? Not only that, even when these methods get better because of bot farms being busted or the content not even being botted anymore, like killing gargoyles or blue dragons, there becomes such a bad stigma centered around it because it's been botted for so long. Bots ruin more than just the economy of the game and, you know, competing for the resource. They ruin the vibe of it too, and that's just as important as the integrity of the game. What I mean by all this is, well, let me give you an example instead. If a player comes home after a long day, you know, working 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and they log on to Runescape and they have to compete with bots, do you think they'll still pay for membership or even try to pay for membership or even have a desire to play the game? And let's say, fuck it. They just say, I'll just do what everyone else is doing. You know, now they're actively competing with other players for the best moneymakers. Do you think they'll want to keep logging in or even return to that activity that was heavily botted? Of course not. Of course not. They'd rather log into a gacha game like Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail or, you know, any gacha game and spend $100 to have fun because at least they feel that their time and money is being spent on an enjoyable experience. So, botted in free-to-play is awful. The Coliseum bot is awful. Red bots are awful. Boss bots are awful. We don't see it all the time, but there is a lot of bots in the game that is just making the game very awful. But okay, I'm not saying that RuneScape isn't trying to take measures against the bots either. They are, but there's gonna be a point where they just can't do much, and that they need to kind of employ more drastic measures to prevent it botting. And I actually came up with an idea that would greatly reduce the number of botters and cheaters, but it would be pretty much universally hated by everyone, and even me, and it comes with its own risks. That idea is requiring ID verification to play on any account. You know, this would obviously help in dealing with bots, as the players using the bots or cheating will have their ID banned. You know, the only positives are that it'll maintain the integrity of the game, which gives it more longevity as a result. But there are two main negatives to this, to have an ID verification, with the biggest one being, you know, giving up your anonymity to play RuneScape. You know, being able to hide your identity on the internet and your personal data, it's a big deal for most people, and it should be a big deal for most people. You know, even with proper security and no data leaks, just giving up your anonymity alone, it's still something that a lot of people simply aren't comfortable with. Another negative is that having your personal information, you know, Jagex having your personal information would be really bad. I mean, their security would have to be insane to prevent data leaks that could compromise your entire life, if that were to happen. But there's actually trusted middlemen that banks and even the government use for ID verification that have insane levels of security that Jagex could use too in exchange for a small fee. I mean, this means that Jagex won't have your personal data, and the odds of your personal information being leaked is pretty small. It also probably means that membership would go up to offset that cost, but that's we don't actually even know if that's going to happen. So I think what I'm saying is that at a certain point, and I think we're rapidly reaching that point, the player base, we as the player base, as you and I and everyone else, they need to decide if the integrity of the game is more important than a very small possibility of our data being leaked. To me, I wouldn't be happy to force to sign up with an ID to play, but I'd still do it if there was a well-vetted company that could properly handle my data. If my data is in trusted hands, I do it simply because I love RuneScape and I don't want to see an end of service anytime soon. But with the way bots are progressing and the integrity of the game becoming more and more at question every day, it's possible that we might reach an end of service years ahead of when we really should. Because eventually RuneScape will die. That's just the truth to it. Eventually it will die. But, we're going to be, approaching the question of will it die in a couple years or will it die in 20 years? And I think a big influence to that is going to be bots. So, with all that being said, this is my spicy take that many people probably won't like. And even I don't even like that much, but I think it's almost like a necessary evil. I think Jagex should require ID verification to become a member, regardless of popular opinion. Don't pull it, just do it. The poll will fail, no one will like it, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be done. No one likes driving the speed limit and getting the ticket when they go over it, but it just has to be done. Holding people accountable, and it's too important towards the integrity of the game. And as you can see from the Coliseum bot and Inferno bots, the hardest content in the game, it's unfortunately kind of getting to the point where I feel like we need this. So let the people try the game for free, and if they liked it, have them verify their ID and let them sign up for membership. The majority of bots would disappear overnight, and players could be held accountable with suspensions or bans, and the game would be better overall for everyone. And if you disagree, I don't know. Please let me know why you disagree for any other reason other than anonymity or potential data leaks. I'd be curious as to what your perspective is. But alright, to kind of close all this up, I think the future of RuneScape content-wise looks very promising for the individual player. But without drastic action, bots are going to completely ruin the content and the game as a result. They always do. PvP is eventually going to die because of bots and HKing. They will get to a point where theirs close-up is perfect as they can get and will literally kill us 9 out of 10 times with us getting lucky every now and then. I mean, to some degree, it's already been happening for years with cheat clients in the wildy. It's insane. Eventually, there might even be bots that actively hunt and kill real players. I mean, realistically, when you look at some of the bots that are in the game, we're not even that far from seeing it. So, that's all I have for you guys in the first episode of the Weekly Waffle. I hope you enjoyed. I know I talked about some controversial topics, and I promise I did some waffling as advertising. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. I'd really like to know each of your thoughts about this. Till next time, peace.